Thank you all for joining. This is Brewing Knowledge Fridays, and we all meet on a Friday evening from 5:30 to 6:15 to read a book from cover to cover. And the book that we have been reading for a while is called What Did You Ask at School Today? I'm sure that some of you find it difficult to keep waiting for uh, another chapter or variations in the chapter with the week. Uh, but maybe all of you, once in a while, can share why do you all come for the reading session and how does it help you, if it helps you at all. And what is the joy that you receive from reading together? And if any of you would like to share what compels you to come here on a Friday evening to read together. आप में से किसी को भी अगर जो मैंने बोला और आपको लगा कि शायद हम हिंदी में बोल सकते हैं तो मैं ज़रूर हिंदी में भी बोल सकती हूँ, पर आपको बताना पड़ेगा अगर आपको मेरी बात कोई समझ में नहीं आई है तो। मैं चाहती हूँ कि आप में से कोई भी बताए, आप सभी बता सकते हैं कि आप लोग
English is fine.
में क्यों आते हैं। ओके, sure. So maybe someone can share why do you come to this online session of reading together on a Friday evening to the brewing knowledge session.
On a Friday or any time when I come to read for a reading session online with other people, it's basically to understand, to broaden my horizons actually, because you come to hear different perspectives. And that is the reason why I'm here. Otherwise, reading I can always do on my own, but it's nice to hear other people's view on something.
Thank you, Meenakshi ji. That's a very important point. And that is something I would like all of you to do, which is share what you feel, share what you are thinking. Even if you disagree, please let us know. Please tell us if you disagree with something that we are reading. So please do all of that. So I'm going to start reading, and this chapter I'm going to recap a little bit. And instead of starting with Howard Gardner's 7 intelligences, we will start with to understand his position. To understand his position, imagine a world where the only people who succeeded in life were those who could excel at track and field events. It paints a bleak picture, indeed, for many of us, struggling and failing throughout childhood, higher education, and job seeking. And on the other hand, some of us would suddenly be assured of a rosy future. Similar things happen when we make school type intelligence the most highly valued. Gardner's response to this is to redefine intelligence as being of several different types, corresponding loosely, as you can see below, with abilities what we might otherwise call talents. According to his multiple intelligences theory, we all have different levels of the different intelligences. Thus, each person has a profile of strengths and weaknesses, and education must strive to nurture all these proportionately. Howard Gardner's 7 intelligences: linguistic, that is, grasping new meaning quickly; musical, that is, sensitive to pitch; logical, mathematical, abstract reasoning; spatial, that is, mental transformation of seen objects; bodily, kinesthetic, that is, graceful or athletic actions; personal, that is, understanding one's motives; social, that is, understanding the feelings of others. So I hope all of you are able to follow what Howard Gardner is redefining intelligence in the school. This redefinition can, in principle, be extended to more intelligences if we wish. After all, there is no strong biological basis for coming up with this initial set of seven. Recently, Gardner has added two more to his list: naturalist and spiritual intelligences. This illustrates an important point. The answer to the question, what is intelligence, may be more of a decision than a discovery. And in that sense, any theory of intelligence must be evaluated in terms of its usefulness in describing behavior rather than its truth value. If Gardner's theory of multiple intelligences makes us more sensitive to children's differing strengths in many areas of ability, if it encourages us to widen the scope of education to include these many areas, and if it further provokes a questioning of society's values, it's a good theory in my book. Other theories of intelligence can also be evaluated from this point of view. Adaptive intelligence. Robert Sternberg, an active thinker in the field, offers a different definition. First, he says intelligence is something that applies in any context. We cannot isolate school performance as the only place where intelligence will show. A person surviving on the streets or in a jungle also uses his intelligence and displays intelligent behavior. Second, intelligence is the mental ability required to adapt to or shape the context we're in. So it is not only the ability to perform well on an IQ test, but also the ability to find your own way around in the jungle or to keep one step ahead of trouble onto the streets. And third, he says that intelligence represents those mental abilities that are necessary for survival, not just useful or desirable. In this respect, some of Gardner's intelligences don't meet Sternberg's criteria for intelligence. So, in Sternberg's triarchic theory, there are three kinds of intelligence: analytical, creative, and practical. He and his colleagues have conducted a wealth of research in countries as far flung as India, Russia, Tanzania, and the US, showing that these three intelligences are distinct from each other and yet all correlate with success in real life situations. The first of the three, analytical intelligence, is the only one that we generally consider the whole of intelligence. This is too narrow a definition, and Sternberg claims that those low in analytical intelligence but high in creative and or practical intelligence do also excel when given the right environment. Too often, he says, such people are lost by the wayside because they did not perform well on measures of analytical intelligence, which is the only kind we seem to value in school. Here are some examples from Sternberg's tests. I have modified some to suit Indian conditions. Analytical intelligence. Write the number in the series: -4, -3, -1, 3, 11, 27. Choose the best meaning for the word JITS in the following paragraph. Any business that ignores its regular clientele in order to concentrate on the new JITS may discover that sales do not increase. The new interest generated may not be enough to compensate for the loss in sales caused by the dissatisfied patrons who begin to shop elsewhere. JID most likely means so on and so forth. Do any of you have any questions? Do any of you want to ask anything? pose any question to the group, say something, share something, please do it. Please don't be, uh, please don't feel embarrassed to share however you are feeling reading this, or if you have any thoughts regarding this. Hi, Preeti. Have you come here before to the reading group? Hi, Parminder Kaur ji. Hi, Suman.
हेलो मैम।
ये बात हो रही है डिफरेंट टाइप्स ऑफ इंटेलिजेंसेस की, और कैसे स्कूल में एनालिटिकल इंटेलिजेंस को ज़्यादा महत्व दिया जाता है. सो द ऑथर इज डिफाइनिंग what analytical intelligence is. And now we're going to look at creative intelligence. There is a new mathematical operation called graph. It is defined as follows. And you can see that. Looking at the first sequence, complete the second sequence with one of the given choices. Practical intelligence. Your friend has not been doing her homework for weeks, even though you keep telling her it is for her own good. Recently, she has started copying your answers at the last minute. If you want to help your friend, yet, if possible, avoid her getting into trouble with the teacher and her extremely strict parents, what is the best solution? ये मैं आप सबसे भी पूछना चाहती हूँ कि सपोज आपका दोस्त जो है होमवर्क नहीं करता है स्कूल में, आपके बार बार बताने पर भी, और अब वो लास्ट मिनट पर आपके आंसर्स कॉपी करने लग गया है, तो आप क्या करेंगे? और ये जानते हुए कि आपका दोस्त जो है बहुत मुसीबत में आ सकता है अगर टीचर ने देख लिया या उसके बहुत ही स्ट्रिक्ट पेरेंट्स को पता चल गया, तो बेस्ट सोल्यूशन क्या है? आप में से कोई बताना चाहेगा कि आपके हिसाब से एक बेस्ट सोल्यूशन क्या होगा आपके दोस्त के लिए?
मैम एज अ फ्रेंड हम उसको गाइड करेंगे कि एक्स्ट्रा टाइम में वो हमारे साथ बैठ के प्रिपेयर करे वो सब कुछ, बजाय उसको चीटिंग करवाने का।
That's a good idea. Yes. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. कोई और बताना चाहेगा उनका बेस्ट सोल्यूशन?
Yes, ma'am. Like we can share the method. Like if it's a math question or like something like that, then we can share the method, not the whole answer, and we can like explain him, or maybe we can give him hints, and then maybe
Yeah, that's a very good option, Sneha. Thank you. Anyone else? संदीप जी, आप क्या करते अगर आपको अपने दोस्त को चीटिंग भी नहीं करानी, टीचर से भी बचाना है, स्ट्रिक्ट पेरेंट्स से भी बचाना है? आप म्यूट पर हैं.
जी मैम।
हाँ जी.
ऐसा कभी मेरी क्लास में तो ऐसा नहीं हुआ है मैम। ऑलरेडी मेरा वर्क कंप्लीट होता है, ऐसा कोई स्टूडेंट नहीं होता है। बट अगर एज ए फ्रेंड, अगर मैं किसी कोई मेरा फ्रेंड ऐसा है, अगर वर्क नहीं कंप्लीट है तो हेल्पिंग हैंड जरूर बनूंगा मैं। उस टाइम उसको हेल्प किया जाएगा। बट इन फ्यूचर उसको अगर इस तरह की प्रॉब्लम आ रही है तो डेट मीन्स उसे अवेयर किया जाएगा कि इस तरह से फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल अपना टाइम मैनेजमेंट करे, कितना टाइमिंग जो है उसका वर्क जो कंप्लीट नहीं उसको दिया जाए।
मैं एज अ टीचर आंसर करूं?
थैंक यू संदीप जी. यस मीनाक्षी जी.
देखो, एज अ टीचर, see, when you copy somebody's work, obviously you'll copy his mistakes as well, है ना? तो I am going to stress on that कि देखो, because you copied his work, you've copied his mistakes, and maybe had you done it on your own, you might have got it correct and you could have helped your friend. उसका ईगो को थोड़ा सा वो भी करूंगी, करेक्ट वो भी डालूंगी कि हो सकता है वो सही कर लेता, ऐसा जरूरी नहीं कि वो गलत ही करता, हो सकता है उससे क्वेश्चन करवा लूं वो, जिससे वो करेक्टली कर ले, है ना, जो गलत किया है। बिकॉज एज अ टीचर हमारा काम होता है गाइड करना कि हाँ कॉपी करोगे तो
बट मीनाक्षी जी, यू हैव टू टेल एज अ फ्रेंड. तो आप ऐसे अज्यूम नहीं कर सकती कि मैं एज अ टीचर बताऊंगी. आपको अज्यूम
as a
करना है.
friend, of course, as a friend, you cannot put your friend into trouble. That's your moral responsibility कि उसको सबसे डांट ना पड़ जाए. तो मैं तो उसको पहले तो मना करती कि मेरा कॉपी मत करो, है ना, तुम खुद से करो. मैं तुमको बैठ कर हेल्प करूंगी, जहां पर भी तुम अटकोगे मैं हेल्प करूंगी. ये करती एज अ फ्रेंड. बट वो तो बीन सो लॉन्ग सिंस आई हैव बीन इन दैट रोल, सो दैट्स अ डिफरेंट थिंग. So normally you tell your friend not to copy. As children, when we were in school, हम लोग तो बहुत करते थे, हाथ से कवर कर रहे हैं, पेंसिल बॉक्स से कवर कर रहे हैं, कॉपी नहीं करने दे रहे हैं. हाँ, लेकिन अगर कोई बोलता था समझाने के लिए जरूर समझा देते थे. तो ये सब तो हम लोग करते ही थे, क्योंकि हम अपने लिए भी डरते थे. हमारे समय तो दोनों बच्चे को खूब कस के डांट पड़ता, जो कॉपी करा रहा था उसको भी और जो कर रहा था उसको भी. तो एंड तो अपने को भी बचाते थे और फ्रेंड को भी एक तरह से हेल्प नहीं करते थे, ऐसा नहीं है, करते तो थे, उसको समझा देते थे हर चीज, बता देते थे हर चीज, लेकिन कॉपी नहीं करने देते थे. वो हम लोग के समय ऐसे ही चलता था.
ओके, थैंक यू
अगर
मीनाक्षी जी.
मैं मेरे अकॉर्डिंग बताऊं तो जिस टाइम में जो हमारा टाइमिंग था एज स्टूडेंट लाइफ, उसमें तो मोस्टली ये होता था कि फ्रेंड है चलो कॉपी करो. मीन्स
हाँ,
टीचर से बचाना है उसको किसी तरह से.
मैं भी यही करती थी, और मैंने तो ये खुद भी किया है. मैंने तो खूब
हाँ.
कॉपी किया है.
नहीं, अगर मैं खुद बताऊं, मेरा तो रियल लाइफ है. मैंने प्लस टू का एग्जाम भी मैंने मेरे फ्रेंड का दिया है, मैंने इंग्लिश का. बोर्ड का एग्जाम
आप
दिया मैंने.
अब आपकी ये आवाज रिकॉर्ड हो गई है और ये यूट्यूब पर भी जाएगी, और अगर किसी टीचर ने देखा तो उनको पता चल जाएगा.
नहीं, सच में रियल में मैंने एग्जाम दिया है बच्चे का, मेरे फ्रेंड का दिया है. बहुत अच्छा मेरा फ्रेंड है.
देखिए
और
मीनाक्षी जी, एज अ
समय
टीचर
समय का डिफरेंस है ना. तुम आप लोग सब हमसे बहुत छोटे हो. हमारे समय अगर मतलब एकदम थोड़ा सा भी कॉपी करने में बहुत अच्छी तरह से मतलब इट वुड बी वेरी ह्यूमिलिएटिंग फॉर बोथ द पीपल. सो कॉपी करने वाला भी डरता था, कॉपी कराने वाला भी डरता था. लेकिन हाँ, ऐसे एक दूसरे को ये तो टीचर्स भी बोलते थे कि इसको सिखा दो, बता दो, इसको हेल्प कर दो, वो एक अलग बात है, वो हम लोग कर देते थे. लेकिन कॉपी नहीं करने देते थे और खुद भी कॉपी नहीं करते थे. बहुत डर लगता था. I mean, in those Anglo-Indian schools and missionary schools that we studied in, they were very, very strict. So it is different. You people are much younger than me. So probably the feeling is different. So हाँ, ठीक है.
थैंक
I know
यू.
later on people did copy. हम लोग भी we've been teachers during that time. So that's all. So,
Thank you everyone. This seems like this is a very touchy topic. Cheating, copying, being a teacher, being a friend. Thank you.
मैम, ये टॉपिक तो हमारा जो था एक स्टूडेंट लाइफ से चीटिंग तक पहुंच गया है.
Yeah. So the four options are: ask your parents for advice since they are friends with her family. Suggest that your friend explain everything to the teacher and ask for help. Tell the teacher what is going on and request her not to take disciplinary action against your friend. Use the map below to answer the question. You are walking from the cell phone shop to the shoe store. Your friend is walking from the horoscopes stall to the ice cream shop. Which of these places are you both likely to pass? So there's a whole map that we would have spent time solving. There are numerous examples of interesting studies on the practical intelligence of people in different walks of life, from horse racing bookies to psychology professors to Brazilian street vendors. These studies all demonstrate that practical intelligence is largely unrelated to academic intelligence. Robert Sternberg describes the result of a study of workers at a milk processing plant. Workers who assemble orders for cases of various quantities, that is, gallons, quarts, or pints, and products, that is, whole milk, 2% milk, or buttermilk, are called assemblers. Experienced assemblers used complex strategies for combining partially filled cases in a manner that minimized the number of moves required to complete an order. Although the assemblers were the least educated workers in the plant, they were able to calculate in their heads quantities expressed in different base number systems, and they routinely outperformed the more highly educated white collar workers who substituted when assemblers were absent. The order filling performance of the assemblers was unrelated to measures of school performance, including intelligence test scores, arithmetic test scores, and grades. Box 2, Practical Intelligence, Tacit Knowledge. Once, a psychologist was hired to administer IQ tests to the children in a school for the mentally challenged. When he arrived, he found the students had managed to outwit school staff and had run away in spite of elaborate security in the place. When the children were finally rounded up, the psychologist began to administer the maze test, a paper and pencil test where you have to find your way out of mazes. None of the students who had escaped the authorities were able to find their way out of the mazes in the test. This is a true story, and it illustrates a mismatch between what psychologists call practical intelligence and traditional, traditional paper and pencil tests of intelligence. The table illustrates the differences between such tests and the demands of the real world. Sternberg also talks of successful intelligence, which is the ability to capitalize on one's strengths and compensate for one's weaknesses. In this view, intelligence is what helps us to be successful in life. But we cannot disregard the abilities tapped by traditional IQ tests: analytical, logical, verbal abilities. As Sternberg says, by supplementing existing traditional tests with measures of practical intelligence, rather than replacing them, we will gain a fuller account of intelligence than with either alone. Gardner's and Sternberg's definitions of intelligence are liberating. Schools that adopt definitions like these would change their curricula to encourage different abilities as well as practical and creative intelligence. But as long as society as a whole maintains narrow ideas about intelligence, students from such schools will have to swim against the current in a sense. Nowadays, too many interesting, worthwhile, and challenging vocations are given little or no respect in our society. Teaching is a prime example. If psychologists waited to settle issues of definition before turning to measurement, they would wait forever. So there have been many attempts at measuring this hard to define quality over the past 100 years and more. And we turn to these now. Measurement of intelligence. Obviously, the way you define intelligence influences the way you measure it. Darwin's cousin, Francis Galton, at the turn of the previous century, believed that intelligence was an inherited property of the brain, a matter of neural efficiency, and as such could be measured using reaction time and sensory discrimination tasks. He set up a stall at a public fair in England, offering to test thousands of visitors for a small fee. Unfortunately for him, the data he collected showed that people with quick reaction times or fine discrimination power were not those who were successful in life. So he had to give up on the idea. Over the years, there have been several tests of intelligence based on different definitions. Here are a few examples. Those who look at intelligence as the ability to learn suggest the use of dynamic tests of it. Dynamic tests measure the process of learning in the test itself, rather than treat the test as a measure of past learning alone. If you answer a question correctly, you move on. If not, you are given guided feedback to help answer. The amount and type of feedback given, as well as progress made, go into the measure of intelligence. Excuse me, just give me a moment, please. Sorry. Thank you. Gardner and his colleagues have devised tests of the intelligences based on a system of observational checklists of behaviors, projects, and portfolios. For example, athletic movement, power, agility, speed, and balance is assessed as part of kinesthetic intelligence. These are not yet standardized and widely available. There is also the Sternberg triarchic abilities test of analytical, creative, and practical intelligence using multiple choice as well as essay type items. Examples were given earlier. The test has given promising results in different cultures but is not yet widely used. मैं आप सबसे एक सवाल पूछना चाहती हूँ, आप में से कितने बार आप लोग किसी दुकान पे गए हैं और आपने ये सोचा है कि ये दुकानदार बहुत पढ़ा लिखा नहीं है, और ऐसा हो भी सकता है कि वो स्कूल ना गए हों, पर आपने जो सामान खरीदा उन्होंने उसका कैलकुलेशन चुटकियों में करा, पर शायद आपने या किसी और ने आपके साथ में फोन निकाल के कैलकुलेटर यूज किया। ऐसा अगर सुमन जी इतना स्माइल कर रही हैं तो या तो उनके आसपास उनको कोई हंसा रहा है और या फिर उनको भी लग रहा है कि ये मेरे साथ हुआ है। तो आप में से किस किस के साथ ये हुआ?
बहुत बार होता है मैम, ये बहुत बार होता है। हम फोन के बिना कर नहीं पाते और वो फटाफट कर देते हैं। वो रीजन भी यही है कि वो कैलकुलेशन अपने दिमाग से कर रहे हैं, जबकि हम फोन से कर रहे हैं, तो वो फोन ही देता है आंसर, हमारे दिमाग में वो सब फीड नहीं है। हम उसको
या
भुला रहे हैं।
So, Sumanji, actually, the book is talking about this, the different kind of intelligence, practical intelligence, analytical, और कैसे स्कूल में कई बार हम ये टेस्ट करवा के, that doesn't mean जो बच्चा फेल हो रहा है या जिसके कम मार्क्स आ रहे हैं वो रियल लाइफ चीज़ों में, रियल लाइफ सिचुएशंस में भी अपनी समझदारी नहीं दिखा सकता। Thank you for sharing, Sumanji. If anyone else wants to share, you can. Okay, thank you. In spite of the variety of theories and tests out there, by far the most commonly used test of intelligence is the IQ test, and it has been so for more than 100 years. Two IQ tests are used most often, the Stanford Binet and the Wechsler. They include several subtests ranging from vocabulary, memory, and processing speed to logical reasoning and spatial puzzles. A good look at the subtests of any IQ test will tell you how the author of that test defines intelligence. Subtests on the Wechsler Adult Intelligence Scale. Information. What is STEAM made of? Digital span, short-term memory, vocabulary, arithmetic, comprehension, similarities, picture completion, picture arrangement, block design, object assembly, digital symbol. Individual differences in intelligence. There are individual differences in academic abilities among students of the same age. It should not be surprising or disturbing that this is the case. Individual differences are found in every single human characteristic and ability. Variety is the norm in nature. But in the case of school-related ability, as we have seen, this variety is not accepted as matter-of-factly as, say, variety in athletic ability. Society and the family place a heavy demand on children to measure up to high standards of school performance. And those who meet these standards are considered more intelligent than those who do not. Unfortunately, with the lack of consensus on what constitutes intelligence and therefore how to measure it, any statement about differences becomes questionable as well. Historically, in the US, immigrants from some countries were denied access because it was believed that their intelligence was inferior to that of immigrants from other countries. The accepted measure of intelligence at that time was a version of today's IQ test, and it contained several questions dependent on familiarity with American culture and ways of life. If one racial or ethnic group performed worse on the test than another, the reasons were not necessarily or only to do with intelligence, but with literacy, schooling, and familiarity with mainstream culture. Thus, important decisions about people's lives were made on totally wrong basis. Unless you wish to define intelligence as familiarity with mainstream culture, the tests were not measuring true differences among people. आप इमेजिन कर सकते हैं कि आप किसी कंट्री में इवन एज अ टूरिस्ट जा रहे हैं और आपके वीजा टेस्ट में आपका आईक्यू टेस्ट होता है और सपोज करिए सुमन जी, संदीप जी, मीनाक्षी जी और मैं, हम चारों अलग अलग कंट्री से हैं और आपका आईक्यू टेस्ट क्या आता है, आपके आईक्यू टेस्ट में आपका कितना नंबर आता है, उसी बेसिस पर आपको टूरिस्ट वीजा मिलेगा। और हम चारों अगर अलग कंट्री से हैं तो क्या वो आईक्यू टेस्ट एक ऐसा टेस्ट है जिसके बेसिस पर हमें किसी कंट्री में एंट्री एग्जिट अलाउ होनी चाहिए या नहीं? और ये आईक्यू टेस्ट कैसी चीजें मेजर करता है? So it's a very interesting topic, and I hope all of you also think along with me that we often say this to our students in the classroom कि तुम्हारे मार्क्स इतने आए हैं, तुम तो वही गधे, वही नालायक. Or we say things because students are scoring something. So please keep in mind all of this. Sorry, 1 second, please give me a moment. Okay. We can never be entirely certain that a given intelligence test is equally fair on any two children. As a simple example, Zambian and English children were asked to reproduce some patterns in 3 different media: wire models, clay models, and paper and pencil. The Zambian children did better in wire. The English children did better on paper, and both groups did equally well in clay. If the test had been administered only as a paper and pencil measure, we would wrongly conclude that Zambian children are less able to reproduce patterns. We rarely question the invisibles of the testing process: the language medium of the test, the materials used, the values it embodies, the motivation required to complete it, and the qualities of the examiner. These may contribute substantially to a child's final score, but are usually ignored. Differences in IQ scores can also be found between groups of people separated in time. Some years ago, a political scientist named James Flynn gathered a great deal of evidence from countries around the world, showing that average IQ scores had increased by 5 to 25 points in a single generation over roughly 30 years in the mid 1900s. Flynn went on to speculate on what this striking finding really meant. He concluded that IQ tests do not measure intelligence, but something else which correlates only weakly with intelligence. One of his arguments was that such a widespread and significant increase in intelligence levels should be highly visible. The result should be cultural renaissance too great to be overlooked. But there has been not a single reference to a dramatic increase in genius or mathematical and scientific discovery during the present generation. No one has remarked on the superiority of contemporary school children. In France, for instance, where scores went up by 15 to 20 points, Flynn found that the number of patents granted for inventions has actually diminished over the years. This is very, very interesting. यहाँ पे लास्ट पैराग्राफ में ये बोल रहे हैं कि फ्रांस में इस रिसर्चर ने देखा कि आईक्यू टेस्ट जो हैं 15 से 20 पॉइंट्स बढ़ गए हैं, पर उन्होंने ये भी देखा कि इन्वेंशंस, द नंबर ऑफ इन्वेंशंस फ्रांस में घट गए हैं. तो ऑल्दो फ्रांस के लोगों का आईक्यू टेस्ट पॉइंट में बढ़ गया, 15 से 20 पॉइंट बढ़ गया, पर इन्वेंशन करने की ताकत कम हो गई. Very interesting. These examples suggest that we are not quite ready to answer questions about the causes of differing intelligence levels. Psychologists do, of course, study the relative influence of nature and nurture on IQ test scores. But as we have seen, this assumes just one answer to the question of what intelligence really is. And then there's the question of teaching intelligence, whether it can be done and to what extent. At this point, we may feel like someone else who started building a house on a flimsy foundation and is trying to make it to a third floor. In our definitions of intelligence are uncertain, and the cause and the nature of individual difference in intelligence is uncertain. What statements can possibly be made with any certainty about methods of increasing intelligence? Educating for intelligent behavior. In the chapter on learning, sorry, did someone send something in the chat? In the chapter on learning, you encountered the psychologist David Perkins in a section on context-dependent reasoning. Perkins' view of intelligence comes from the understanding that intelligent behavior is always shown in a context or a domain of knowledge. For him and many other psychologists, intelligence is not an isolated skill. One can look at an economist or a microbiologist and observe any number of signs of intelligence in their behavior. And we very easily label such people intelligent. But it might be useful for us as educators to distinguish between an expert and an intelligent novice. An intelligent novice, as described by psychologist John Brewer, is someone who, when confronted with a new problem or a new field of inquiry, applies her prior learning to the new situation in a flexible way, uses general strategies such as analogy or measure end analysis, and monitors her own approach and progress in learning. Must have three capacities, all of which Brewer believes can be built through education. This is very, very interesting. And I would like to take a moment to maybe say this in Hindi for some of the teachers who are here and may benefit from maybe a little bit of translation here. यहाँ लास्ट वाले पैराग्राफ में ऑथर ये बोलना चाह रही हैं कि बहुत सारे बार हम लोग एक इंसान जो शायद माइक्रोबायोलॉजिस्ट हो या इकोनॉमिस्ट हो, हम उसको इंटेलिजेंट बोलते हैं कि ये तो बहुत इंटेलिजेंट इंसान है। पर हमें इंटेलिजेंस क्या होती है इसके बारे में सोचना चाहिए। और एक अ, कम उम्र का इंसान जो बहुत समझदार हो, क्या हम उसको इंटेलिजेंट कह सकते हैं और इंटेलिजेंस का मतलब क्या है? तो इसके बारे में आप डिफर कर सकते हैं एज टीचर्स। और अगर इंटेलिजेंस का मतलब ये है कि आप किसी सिचुएशन में कुछ सीखकर उस नई सिचुएशन में अगर आप हैं उसको यूज कर पाते हैं एक फ्लेक्सिबल तरीके से, और स्ट्रैटेजीज यूज करते हैं अपने दिमाग की, मन की, तो आप भी इंटेलिजेंट हैं, आप भी एनालिसिस यूज कर रहे हैं। तो ऐसी 3 कैपेसिटीज आप बिल्ड कर सकते हैं थ्रू एजुकेशन, अपने स्टूडेंट्स में या अपने आसपास लोगों में, अपने आसपास बच्चों के। और अब हम उन कैपेसिटीज के बारे में पढ़ेंगे। Domain specific knowledge, a solid foundation of conceptual and procedural knowledge in at least one domain. An ability to make these skills more general, understanding of when and how to apply the knowledge and strategies to new situations. In Brewer's words, how to stretch it to pose and answer novel problems. Metacognitive skills, the ability to think about thinking and to monitor and control her own mental processing. I am not sure if a lot of you are aware of this word, of this term called metacognitive skills, but maybe as educators, as teachers, or someone interested in learning or intelligence, you can look up this word called metacognitive. It's a very, very crucial term. Another way to see the difference between an expert and an intelligent novice is by using this hypothetical question posed by Perkins and a colleague, Gabriel Salomon, in 1989. Suppose a small, peace loving country is under threat from a large, aggressive neighbor. The small country has no experience in war strategy whatsoever, but it does have the world's reigning champion chess player. So the leader asks the chess champion to use his superior reasoning skills to help them outwit their enemy. Will it work? Is it is a great chess player just generally intelligent, or is intelligence restricted to the domain of chess? From one point of view, training the mind in chess could give a person the capacity to handle real life military strategy, since any mental training exercises the brain and improves its general capacities. This idea was once popular among psychologists, but around the mid 1970s, research in cognition swung the pendulum the other way. The prevailing view became that expertise in a particular domain will result in intelligent behavior only in that domain, or at best, in domains that share almost all elements with the original one. In other words, the chess champion will not be able to do much to save his country. Although, if he were sent off to compete in an international checkers competition, he would do extremely well. I would like to quickly ask any of you, क्या आपको लगता है कि एक बच्चा जो चेस बहुत अच्छा खेलता हो, बहुत ही नेशनल लेवल चैंपियन हो, और वो जिस कंट्री में है उस कंट्री का एक एनिमी है, दुश्मन है, अब ये वाली कंट्री जिसका ये चेस प्लेयर है, वो कंट्री इस बच्चे को बोलती है कि तुम हमें एक स्ट्रैटेजी बनाओ हमारे लिए, मिलिट्री स्ट्रैटेजी, तो क्या आपको लगता है कि वो बच्चा जो बहुत अच्छा चेस खेलता है, नेशनल लेवल चेस प्लेयर है, क्या उसको ट्रस्ट किया जा सकता है ऐसी स्ट्रैटेजीज के लिए, या फिर उसको ऐसी ही चीजों के लिए ट्रस्ट किया जा सकता है जो उसके डोमेन की है? You can all think about this question, and maybe next time or even now if you feel like answering
See,
quickly.
the thing is, Nilashi, yes and no. Yes, if
Okay.
he has some idea about what happens at the military field, okay, then he may, his strategies may help, okay. Because in chess also he strategizes, and over there also strategies are required. But if he has never been to a war zone, a war field, he has no idea about diplomatic relations and all those things. I don't see it happening. His knowledge
Hmm,
depends on the knowledge he has. सिर्फ चेस अच्छा खेलने से नहीं हो सकता है, और भी बहुत कुछ उसको पता होना चाहिए तब.
I agree. Thank you, Miss Meenakshi, for sharing. And thank you, everyone, for joining us on a Friday evening to read together. Uh, I will meet all of you next week, and it would be wonderful if you all can bring some questions, bring some thoughts together that we are reading about, especially intelligence, and how, as educators or people in family, people relating to other people, how do you imagine intelligence to be? आपके लिए इंटेलिजेंस का मतलब क्या है? क्या आप अपने आसपास लोगों को जज करते हैं इस वर्ड इंटेलिजेंस से, इंटेलिजेंट, और क्या आपने क्वेश्चन किया है इसका मतलब है क्या, और ये मैंने कहाँ से समझा है इसका मतलब क्या होता है? थैंक यू ऑल सो मच. I'll see you all next week on a Friday at 5:30. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Hello, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good evening.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Ji.
ma'am.
I
Good
just thought
evening,
I'd
sir.
wish you and leave behind. Good evening, Sandeep. I just thought I'd leave behind an idea.
Yes,
When you close the session, like I think today you can leave behind the idea what is metacognition, and let everyone tell you next time what they have understood about metacognition. Just keep it
Sure, sir.
plain simple. Just find one element of your reading and leave it for everyone to think.
sure.
Because when you tell people जो आपके आइडिया हो ले आना तो कुछ नहीं आता. It's like asking for a haystack, but we want the needle. So there were three, four very interesting things you read today. One was this idea about the domain. Second was the types of intelligences and which intelligence works where, and how over the years, how intelligence has today graduated to a different way. You talk of intelligence in various forms. It used to be IQ, there's EQ, there's now spiritual quotient. There are various ways of describing the quotients. And the latest test says that you add up the four quotients and then only you get a better personality. So anyway,
Yeah.
let's not get involved in all that. So these ideas about EQ, IQ, domain knowledge, game of chess, metacognition, leave behind something substantial which is common so that everyone can apply their mind on that. It's wonderful. We've tried this before, it works beautifully. We said, okay, next time everyone come up with one slide on metacognition.
Sure.
And please share your slide on metacognition. So spend 5-10 minutes. The way to do things is very simple. The reflections, let them bring the reflections along. They don't have to create blog post. They can come verbally, they can come visually, they can come aesthetically, whichever they want. Tell them to bring along something to share with you. So in the first 5-7 minutes, that'll help you get some kind of replay. When you're reading on, whenever I start reading every day, I always flip back 2 pages to pick up my continuity. Like I have a bookmark here, but I will always read a page behind and then start.
Yes.
So
I would
similarly,
do
if you
that.
leave behind even, let's say, metacognition as a word, so when people talk about that, means they figured out, yeah, last time we talked about this, we were somewhere here, so let's go ahead. I just thought
Sure.
this was a way of brewing knowledge. And for everyone's thought, please remember, what is intelligence? It's application of knowledge. And what is wisdom? Is the use of intelligence. So think about it. Thank you for letting me speak. I held you back by a minute. Enjoy yourself. Have a great evening.
Thank you. Have a great evening, everyone.
Thank you.